Hello and welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. So today I thought we could start with some basics. I know we always go over the basics, but I want to share with you these 3 ways that meditation practice and mindfulness practice train your attention. So what are these 3 ways? It's important to reflect on maybe the ways in which that you've kind of become more self-aware. Perhaps the ways in which you become more situationally aware. Perhaps the ways in which you've been much more engaged with what you're doing while you're doing it. The benefits of this practice and any of your daily practices really show up in the way you live. So let me give you an example. So there are 3 ways meditation and mindfulness, formal practices like this, change your or train your attention. First, it can help you become more self-aware. So what does that mean? When you're more self-aware, you know your instinctual yums and yucks. For instance, you know when something is for you and not for you. You also know maybe when you try to talk yourself into something or out of something. You're also in real time with your body's response to a person, place, or thing. So when you're practicing today with me and practicing on your own during the week, you are developing this self-awareness. You're developing this self-awareness, and you're not just getting information through your 5 senses externally. You're tuning in to the subtler realms of feeling, the subtler realms of hearing, if you happen to be hearing intuitively things like don't go there or go and talk to that person. So that's one way, is you become more self-aware. You are much more present to your habits of spacing out so you can correct them. You're much more present perhaps to your habits of multitasking, where you're doing more than one thing at a time. Like I'm letting people into the Zoom room and talking to you at the same time. So one way that these practices train your attention is that you become much more self-aware and in real time with your internal dialogue. The second way that mindfulness and meditation practices train your attention is to help you to do one thing at a time, to be engaged with what you're doing while you're doing it. So as you're sitting right here with me, I know some of you are having your tea, some of you are straightening out your desk, some of you are trying to get a little more comfortable in the seat that you're in, or you're patting your cat or your dog, or you're just trying to just settle right into this moment. And so becoming more present and monotasking, becoming more engaged with what you're doing while you're doing it, is really a training to be able to focus on purpose to what you're doing. And really and truly, this is the secret to having a great life, that you can be in charge of your attention and no one else, not the dramatic neighbor, not the news on television, not the signage or the pop-ups that come on your computer or phone. Instead, you wrangle your attention and decide what you want to pay it to. So you can monotask. So you become self-aware, you can monotask, pay attention to your attention, doing one thing at a time, and being fully engaged with what you're doing while you're doing it in this present moment. So that's the third benefit, is to be engaged in this moment. You know, I was with a friend over the weekend and I was talking about, this moment, how delicious the food was and how beautiful her house was. And she kept thinking about the future. Now, the future can be scary for many of us. Don't get me wrong. I think about the future a lot, but I also know that when the mind goes there sort of unconsciously or habitually, that sometimes it can turn into a negative prayer. Nothing's happened yet, but there's all kinds of fear around the future. So for those of us who happen to hang out in the future and worry about it, there's nothing you can do about it, by the way, except for be prepared. And so it's important to bring your attention right back here to where your life is actually happening and when your life is actually happening. The other habit that many of us have is to dwell on the past, what you should have done, what you could have done, what you didn't do, what you did do. And again, that's when you're back there, sort of habitually and unconsciously, you're missing this moment here. So it's really important to be, again, self-aware, to notice where your attention is. Some of us, and I'm one of these also, spend quite a lot of time in other people's business. So, of course, the elections coming up here in the primaries in California, and a lot of us are spending a lot of time in other people's business, mentally anyway. And so it's really important to come home to your own business, to stay out of other people's business, because it can really lead to frustration and anger. It can be born of compassion and care. But if it's you're constantly heading out into other people's business, it can also keep you from being right here in your own business. So what are the 3 ways? First, it makes you more self-aware, much more aware of your internal cues, your internal feelings, your responses to situations, your intuition, your inner knowing, your emotional intelligence. It helps you to stay right here, right now, and be engaged in the present moment, this moment right here, where your feet are on the floor, where your hands are touching your lap, where you're seated right here on a Zoom call or listening to a recording. And then the third is to monotask, do one thing at a time. So even though it may look like we're sitting around doing nothing, as many people would say about a meditator, we're actually training our attention, training our focus, becoming more powerful, because when you garner the power of your attention, you can change the world, yours, and maybe the world considered out there. So let's move into a meditation. But before we do, I wanted to run over the 5 essentials with you one more time and just go over those. First off, as you remember, doesn't matter what meditation practice or mindfulness practice you're doing, if your mind drifts away like it does, that's normal, 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day. Your job is to wrangle them back here. And sometimes you want to daydream or redecorate your living room or plan a menu or get into other people's business, but you have to bring it back here. And you can do that later. You can do all of that later. When you're meditating, bring it back here. But the most important element of bringing it back is to be kind to yourself. To be kind to yourself. There's no room here for self-recrimination or judgment. It doesn't help in any way, shape, or form. Third, don't try to have an experience you're not having. You may think that you're supposed to levitate or see colors or feel really good or peaceful, and you might not have any of that occur. And it doesn't mean you're doing it incorrectly. So don't try to make it happen if it's not happening. Fourth, let go of any expectation you might have. Again, whether you're waiting for something to happen, that can tend to inhibit the natural settling down of the nervous system. So instead of waiting, we give up waiting and we have the experience we're having. We're not trying to have an experience. We're not expecting an experience. And lastly, we generally practice for 20 minutes, and I keep track of the time. And as we do that, we generally at the end take a little bit of time coming out of the meditation. I think it's probably, besides beating yourself up and quitting, it's probably the third most detrimental practice in terms of meditating is to come out too quickly and just to get going with your to-do list. Instead, savor that in-between. The in-between before we get going, as we're going to do in a moment, and that in-between meditation, your waking state and your doing, savoring that as well. So I'm glad you're here. Let's get comfy. As many of you know, I suggest you turn your phone off. I suggest you get as comfortable as you can where you are. Throughout this practice, you can keep your eyes open. That's an advanced technique. Another advanced technique, in my personal opinion, is gazing softly downward, but that may feel better for you. And my experience is keeping my eyes closed helps me to take that inward stroke. So sit as comfortably as you can. You can keep your eyes open or closed. You can close them and open them at any time. You can move your body at any time. And let's get started, shall we? Finding that perfect seat. And as you sit here, I invite you to deepen your breath just a little bit. Ideally, breathing in long, slow, deep inhales and exhaling slowly and fully at your own pace. Three long, slow, deep breaths. And then you can let your breath return to its natural rhythm and depth, ideally breathing through your nose. And as you sit here, you might feel a calming or a quieting. I invite you to gently scan your body, starting from the top of your head, inviting relaxation and softness to your face. Letting go of any tension in your jaw as you tuck your chin just a little bit, allowing the back of your neck to lengthen slightly. Softening your throat. Lowering your shoulders. Some of us have a tendency to hold the body in a tense position, and so to scan the body and invite that softness, that calmness, helps you to settle into this meditation as you relax your belly. Settle into your seat, letting gravity support you. Perhaps you feel your hands in your lap, and the resting of your hands on your thighs. And letting go of any tension in your legs. As you feel the solid ground beneath your feet. And begin to pay attention to the sounds in the environment. Notice how they come and they go, how they arise from the silence and return to the silence. Tuning in now to the more subtle sounds in your body. Perhaps you can hear your breath. Or your heartbeat. Or other sounds of being human. There may be a calming or growing sense of peacefulness and stillness. As you begin to be mindful of the breath, mindful of the inhale, mindful of the exhale. And tuning in to more subtle sensations of the breath, you might notice there's a cooler air on the inhale and a warmer breath as you exhale. You might rest your attention on the end of the exhale, the end of the inhale. No need to try too hard. Simply notice where the breath turns around or pauses. There's nothing special that's supposed to happen here. Simply paying attention and following the breath with your awareness. Not trying to force it in any way. As you disengage from any anxiety or any fear or any worries, and simply let the breath be your business right now. You might tune in now to more subtler sensations of the breath. Perhaps the way the body responds to the breath, the gentle swaying that might happen. Or the rise and fall of your chest. And subtler still, you might begin to notice which way the breath travels as you inhale. Perhaps you sense it moving upward or moving downward. And as you exhale, notice the direction that the breath or the subtle energy moves in the body. Whatever you sense is correct. So there's no need to impose an idea of how it should be. Some people call it your inner flute. Sensing that inner energy of the breath, that inner spaciousness, which is peaceful, refreshing. Nourishing. If you notice the mind wandering or a distressing emotion arising, simply tune in to the breath. Underneath the surface of the emotions or distractions, there's more peace. Inviting yourself to rest in this calmness and let that breath charm you. Tuning in to the subtle sensations and energies of the breath, feeling safe in this moment, feeling present in this moment. We'll practice this for a few more minutes. And if your mind wanders, simply bring it back here, and you can silently say to yourself, I am aware I am breathing in. I am aware I am breathing out. And moving to the more subtle sensations. And drawing your attention now to the gentle rise and fall of your chest. You might imagine that the breath is moving in and out from your heart space, in and out in front of you or behind you, moving into that horizontal plane. Simply noticing if you feel any subtle energies in this direction. There's no need to make anything up. Simply notice. And you might even begin to notice where your body meets the air around you. And imagine, if you like, your whole body subtly moving with the breath, energetically or physically into the space around you, even if it's a millimeter, feeling your body expanding and contracting as you're being breathed. Spaciousness is peaceful. Your breath, along with your awareness, is opening in all directions without any edges or boundaries. And tuning into the movement of the breath once again, in and out of the nostrils, without trying to control or regulate it. And as the meditation comes to a close, I invite you to keep your eyes closed. Notice the sensations in your body. Tune in to the quality of your emotions. Deepen your breath if you like. And before opening your eyes, I invite you to bring your hands together in front of your chest. Maybe your thumbs lightly touching your breastbone in the prayer position. And if it feels comfortable for you, you can offer a prayer of loving kindness. May all beings everywhere be peaceful and happy and free from suffering. And offering this same sentiment to yourself with the same sincerity. May I be peaceful and happy and free from suffering. You might deepen your breath before opening your eyes, letting your hands rest in your lap, inviting some gentle movement into your shoulders or your neck, your arms or your legs. I like to open my eyes just a little bit, let a little light in, and then close them again before opening them all the way. Taking your time is essential. So thank you for practicing with me today. Namaste. I bow to the love that lives through you as you, that breathes through you as you, just like it breathes through me and everyone else. So no matter what it looks like on the outside, we're all just love. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing with that mindful breath awareness? How are you feeling? A little differently than when you sat down? I'd love to hear about that. If you want to put it in the chat, I'm going to stop recording.